On behalf of the Geneva Environment Network, the International Telecommunication Union, ITU, and the CITES Secretariat, welcome to the Geneva celebration of the World Wildlife Day. This year, the theme of the United Nations World Wildlife Day is Connecting People and Planet, Exploring Digital Innovation in Wildlife Conservation. ITU is an ideal place to understand and celebrate connectivity, and we are grateful for the gracious hosting. Last year, we were celebrating together the World Wildlife Day and the 50th anniversary of CITES at the Botanical Garden, also in Geneva. You are invited to embark on a special kind of hackathon with 12 speakers, engineers, biologists, lawyers, social scientists, entrepreneurs that will speed date with us to explore the latest applications of digital technologies in wildlife, from monitoring populations, tracing trade, and raising public awareness to tracking the illegal trafficking in wildlife products. The celebrations around the world today are exploring digital innovation and discussing the impact of digital interventions on ecosystems and communities around the world to enhance wildlife conservation and human-wildlife coexistence, now and for future generations in an increasingly connected world. We started this conversation at the World Summit on the Information Society Forum in 2021 with ITU, highlighting the role of Geneva as host of both the CITES Secretariat and ITU, Geneva and Switzerland, as well as to many other actors engaged in advancing digital innovation in the field of wildlife conservation and international trade. Today is also the ideal day to launch a new information system developed by the CITES Secretariat in collaboration with the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, CITES Lex. We are honored today to be joined by the Secretary General of ITU, the permanent representative of the United States, and the head of the CITES Management Authority in Switzerland to welcome you all here today. As I mentioned, I know I need to be strict with time because we are joined by many guests today who have a lot to share and who I will have the pleasure to introduce as I give them the floor. We'll use a all digital strategy. Diana will show me with the fingers if you are exceeding your time. So I'm very pleased to introduce Madam Doreen Bogdan-Martin, Secretary General of the ITU, International Telecommunication Union. She was elected at the 2022 ITU Plenipotentiary Conference in Bucharest. And I think I should highlight that she is the first woman in the 157-year history of the ITU to become the Secretary General. It's the same case for CITES, so we are very pleased to be led by women. Thank you very much for hosting us here, and you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies. I'll start again. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador. It's a great pleasure to welcome you here to the ITU. I see some familiar faces in the audience and some new faces. For those of you that may not know us, we are the oldest specialized agency in the UN system, and we like to think that we're everything digital. We are probably not the first agency that you would think of when it comes to wildlife conservation, but this year, the day after World Wildlife Day, together with our co-host CITES and with the Geneva Environment Network, we're working with many of you to really put that spotlight on how digital innovation can help to forge stronger and more sustainable connections between people and planet. Because of course, there's so many ways that we can use technology, so many ways that technology is already transforming life on land, below water for the better, and helping to protect fragile ecosystems. Recent advances in Earth observation, lots of things happening in the space of artificial intelligence, and of course, the things happening in our very core mandate area, which is connectivity, are helping to be able to contribute to better and more actionable biodiversity insights. Satellites, of course, are helping us to be able to monitor the state of species, including threat levels, population sizes, habitat changes in near real time. These digital tools are vital to be able to help us in terms of our decision making to inform decisions that are driving real conservation impact on the ground and all over the world. Let's not forget that there is a major role here to play when it comes to international technical standards. Again, one of ITU's core competencies in making sure that all these different biodiversity monitoring systems and conservation management systems can actually exchange data in a way that is seamless. Standards also help us and help companies to be able to track the environmental impact of their tech footprint, which is also an important first step in being able to reduce that impact. This was the motivation, the idea behind our Green Digital Action Track that we launched at COP28 at the end of last year. And we're looking forward to expanding that. We invite you to join us in the run-up to COP29. We're also exploring how we can use digital technologies when it comes to things like farms, like agriculture, fisheries, to be able to make them more sustainable through our standards work on environment and on the circular economy, where ongoing efforts to foster biodiversity conservation are underway. Of course, our AI for Good platform, and this is a photo of our last event. I hope you'll join us at the end of May for the next round of AI for Good. We've launched an AI for Biodiversity series last year, and we're looking at how AI can support biodiversity monitoring and conservation actions. Now, these are not the only connections to wildlife that we have here at the ITU. I will ask you to guess if you can think of the next one. It's an animal that is on the red list of vulnerable species, and it's the world's fastest bird. Anyone want to guess? Please.
The peregrine falcon.
You got it. Thank you. Yes, indeed, the peregrine falcon. And especially in winter, these beautiful birds can be seen on tall buildings around Geneva, including on the top of the ITU tower that we're sitting in right now. And just a few weeks ago, we were delighted when we were contacted by a local conservation group who was looking to have ITU host a nest box. And that nest box is now sitting on the top of the ITU tower, as well as a few other places here in Geneva. If the falcons then decide to settle up there, we will be able to use digital tools and live stream a reality show featuring our feathered friends. And we certainly do hope that they choose to make ITU one of their new homes. And I do think this is a great example of how environmental organizations, how governments, how academia, private sector, and other stakeholders can really come together and make digital innovation work for people, and especially for our planet, by being able to provide human-wildlife coexistence, by being able to show that that is possible in an increasingly digital, in an increasingly connected world. So really excited for today's hackathon panel and look forward to seeing and hearing more from many of our friends here in Geneva about what we can do together. And I will have to leave you shortly, but really excited to be able to host you here, as I said, and look forward to the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary General, for these inspiring remarks and the concrete example, which made me think that also wildlife is not only about animals like this peregrine falcon, but also flora, about plants. And I see this beautiful auditorium, some wood around, which is also a precious part of the richness of the planet. And now I have the privilege to introduce a permanent representative of the United States to the UN at Geneva, Ambassador Chiba Crocker. Ambassador Crocker previously served in several positions at the State Department, at the Department of State, including as Assistant Secretary of State for International Organization Affairs. But I would like to mention something that this Ambassador Crocker was a senior policy and advocacy officer for international affairs at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So plenty to say and share with us. Welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. Happy World Wildlife Day. I'm really pleased to be able to take part in today's event, and I want to extend my thanks to the Geneva Environment Network for organizing this important event. Thank you to ITU Secretary General Doreen Bogdan-Martin for hosting us here today. And Mr. Lorcher, I am grateful, and my family is grateful for the opportunity to live here in Switzerland and appreciate all of the Swiss flora and fauna around us. And we look forward to the Falcon camp. The United States was the first country to ratify CITES, and we are currently serving as elected chair of the CITES Standing Committee and are fully committed to the fight to safeguard 40,000 species against overexploitation from international trade. And while I am proud of our leadership, it's also important that we acknowledge that much of the world's trade in wild animals and plant species is either driven by U.S. consumers, originates in our country, or passes through our ports on the way to other nations. And it is for this reason that our commitment to combating trafficking must be robust and focused on concrete actions to protect the world's biodiversity. And the solutions that we need to look at must evolve and adapt to as the global situation grows ever more complex. But with increasing computer power, falling costs, and bigger data sets, technological tools are being increasingly harvested for good in this space, harnessed for good, I should say. Technology allows us to sequence DNA. It allows us to track animals using GPS or heat monitoring, investigate criminal rings based on their internet activity. Artificial intelligence can help us detect illegal online sales of specific species. Solar energy can light marine nets to reduce the number of protected sharks and rays accidentally caught during fishing. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which is our CITES management authority, supports partner organizations around the world deploying such innovative technologies. In the United States, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Forensics Laboratory, which is our only federal crime lab devoted to criminal investigation of wildlife crimes, is at the forefront of our efforts. Leveraging technological advancements, we can tell not just what plant or animal is being trafficked, but often exactly where it is coming from, so that we can better identify poachers and trafficking networks. And we also work to tackle these problems through a range of government efforts as outlined in our national strategy for combating wildlife trafficking. I would also like to highlight another important effort that we undertake, which is capacity building. And this is an area where we really are proud to provide support. The U.S. government has committed more than $125 million annually in recent years to combat wildlife trafficking around the world. And we will continue to strengthen our efforts through our whole of government wildlife trafficking task force. Citing just one example, our Fish and Wildlife Service, in partnership with the U.S. Department of State, offers a wildlife trafficking cybercrime training course for enforcement officials around the world. And over an intensive week, we help improve local capacity in areas such as digital evidence, crime scene processing, cybercrime investigative techniques, and beyond. And American trainers have traveled across the world from Botswana to Ukraine to improve technological skills for park rangers, police, customs officials, prosecutors, judges, and parliamentarians. We have made great strides, but we are only still scratching the surface of what will be possible through technological advances in these spaces. And this is an exciting time to work together for wildlife conservation. And it is a time in which CITES work has consistently increased in importance. So to close, my hope is that we not only use today to celebrate the collective accomplishments of CITES, but also to renew our shared commitment to harness innovative solutions to make a meaningful difference for the health of our planet. So with that, back to you, and thank you for including me today.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Crocker, for your personal commitment and for the support of the United States. It will be ideal to hack all these organized criminal networks, and you are doing a lot to assist countries with that. And now we'll move to the chair of the Animals Committee, Mr. Matthias Locher, that is also the head of the CITES Management Authority in Switzerland. Switzerland is hosting the secretariat, is the depositary government for the convention, and is also a very active country in international wildlife trade. Mr. Locher, you have the floor.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. It's a great pleasure and honor to welcome you all here in Geneva to this event, to this World Wildlife Day in the year 2024. First of all, I would like to thank ITU, Jen, and also the CITES Secretariat for organizing and hosting this important meeting. In fact, we are celebrating the 51st birthday of the CITES Convention, the Convention on the International Trade in Wild Fauna and Flora. This convention for the past 51 years has controlled and regulated international trade in endangered species, and by doing so has promoted and safeguarded a lot of species from extinction, and has even made very positive contributions to conservation by doing its work. This convention is very important and at the heart of Switzerland. As Juan Carlos just mentioned, we are the depository government of this convention and fulfill an important role in doing so. We are very proud to host the CITES Secretariat here in Geneva, and we are, I can say that, a very active member as a party, contributing in mind and in kind to the working of this convention. Today's topic, connecting people and planet, exploring digital innovation in wildlife conservation, is very timely. Digitalization and digital innovation in governments, public and trade are moving very fast. I mean, if we look at this thing 10 to 15 years ago, I just phoned with it. Today, I'm doing very many things with it. I'm paying bills. I'm looking at my mails on the way to coming here to Geneva. I worked on it. So this is really progress and big changes. And I think conservation must make use of all these changes. Within CITES, we already are doing quite a lot of this. We are using digital innovation. I have the pleasure to chair a working group, standing committee working group on e-permit, electronic permitting for more than 10 years now. And when we started, we didn't have very many parties doing electronic permitting. But since then, the list is getting longer, and we are quite close to the last step, going digital also in permits. We still print hundreds and thousands of permits, but we will go electronic in the near future. I'm sure about that. We also talk about traceability, using technologies to trace the trade from the harvester, from the hunter, through to the end consumer, to make sure it is legal and traceable and sustainable. We also have developed ID materials that our frontline officers can use with a digital, with this thing, to distinguish species, to identify them. And we're also working on marking of live animals to make sure they are traceable and also to prevent illegal trade. And finally, we're also using artificial intelligence in producing risk-based control procedures to use the resources that governments do have in a sustainable manner. I'm sure today we will hear many more examples of this kind, and I'm very thankful that the International Geneva can provide such a platform to exchange views and ideas so that we can learn from each other. So I'm looking forward to this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the Secretary General of ITU for hosting us here and coming to open this meeting. And happy birthday to CITES. Thank you to Matthias, who this year is also retiring after many years contributing to the work of this convention. We'll start celebrations today, and they will last the whole year. And now we are ready to move to the hackathon. So we are going to speed date now with the different speakers that we have the honor to have with us today, and we'll start exploring digital innovation in wildlife conservation. And the first sub-item of this is connecting digital technologies and wildlife conservation. We will start by discussing the advancement of digital technologies impact conservation around the world. And for this session, we are joined by various actors from International Geneva, bringing to us various ongoing projects. And we'll start with Ms. Dao Nguyen, Senior Program Manager, Conservation Action at IUCN.
Thank you very much, Juan Carlos. So today I will present to you about our partnership between IUCN and Huawei on Tech for Nature. It's a global partnership to scale up the use of digital technologies to drive the effective and equitable management of protected and conserved areas. Do I have the... Oh, it's the other way around. Sorry. Yes. So this is an open global partnership between the two organizations. This is the first time IUCN partner with the ICT sector, Huawei, to scale up success in nature conservation through digital technology innovation. So we are now entering the second phase. We started the first phase 3 years ago, and we have gained quite a lot of success in scaling up the digital application in conservation of wildlife and in protected areas. And our goal is by 2026, this Tech for Nature partnership between IUCN and Huawei will enable more than 300 global protected and conserved areas to use technology to evaluate their nature conservation success, biodiversity conservation outcomes. So these areas focus on successfully conserve species, especially threatened species, in the protected areas and their ecosystems through fair and effective management and monitoring activities using technology as measured against the IUCN Green List standard. So the IUCN, we have now launched the IUCN Green List standard for effective managed protected areas to measure and certify in their conservation impacts and contribution to these 300 protected and conserved areas to contribute to nature conservation, the Global Biodiversity Framework, Kunming and Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, and the Sustainable Development Goal. So we are now entering the 3 years of implementation, focusing in more than 30 countries and focusing on key species and ecosystems. So the partnership's objectives is really focusing on reaching the gap between science and conservation action. So bring the ICT sector science innovation into conservation impacts, And we also have on identification and protection of critical habitats for threatened wildlife, threatened species. We also focus on effective management of the protected areas that we are focusing on in the 30 countries, and try to scale up these global impacts and invite more collaboration among the different stakeholders, especially the ICT sector and conservation practitioners in the countries. Focusing on support the implementation of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework that just adopted in 2022. And a lot of these initiatives in the countries, we're focusing on species monitoring and protection and how to bring about the recovery of threatened species. The other emphasis is community involvement, indigenous and local communities involvement in those conservation initiatives using technology. The efficiency and effectiveness in the conservation activities in our projects. And one of the most important area is transparency, inclusivity, and responsibility of using the technology. So these are the two publications from the initiatives that you can download. We want to share those case studies, and the technologies have been mobilized and deployed for these initiatives on the ground in different countries, from acoustic monitoring to camera trapping and AI for identify camera traps photos, and down to the coral planting, for example. So we have 5 flagship success stories of the first phase. In China, we monitor and using different technology from acoustic monitoring for this Hainan gibbon, highly threatened, to monitor and support their conservation efforts, but also using digital technology to ID different camera trap photos. So in Mauritius, we're focusing on the coral. In Mexico, working with local community to monitor key species and ecosystem. In Switzerland, in the Swiss National Park, also looking at some impacts on how to ID the different photos from camera traps, and look at how different methodology can be developed in the forest reserve based on the IUCN Green List. And in Spain, we also use the digital solution for monitor tourism impacts. And we have other countries as well to showcase different technology deployment. For example, in Rwanda, the country employ to support ongoing the ongoing technology implementation in one of the protected areas that are going to be green listed for their effective management and biodiversity outcomes. And in Seychelles, improve digital connectivity for different remote island protected areas. And then we're also looking at how to finance through design and promote virtual visitor programs during COVID. So these are the areas that we are trying to help different protected areas in different countries deploy different technology. And throughout the project, we're also looking at what technology can be developed for the different conservation needs from different countries. And we share these stories across the different countries to scale up and deploy. Thank you very much. And I want to share these slides later for you to have more questions and downloading. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dao and Nguyen. And the idea of the green list, I think, is quite interesting. And the tools you use, we need to accelerate now a little bit. So I will ask you to focus on the big idea, the tool, and one example, and go fast for the others, because now time is starting to to run against us, and time is the key secret of environmental management. If we manage time, we are done. So we are going to move to our colleague John David from UNTAD, and John is Information Systems Officer and UNTAD ASICUDA, and he will talk about digital CITES permitting systems for sustainable wildlife trade.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. Good afternoon to everybody. I'm going to be talking about the eCITES application, which is a joint adventure between the CITES Secretariat and the UNCTAD ASICUDA program. The UNCTAD ASICUDA program is more well known for working with customs over the last 41 years. However, thanks to the CITES Secretariat, we have branched out a little bit, and we've been working in conjunction with them for over 10 years now. On this timeline, just to give you the key elements, 2018, CITES Secretariat funded the development of the eCITES ASICUDA-based solution. It's very rare that you get funding for software development, so we are particularly grateful to them. In 2019, we signed the first project to implement the eCITES application in Sri Lanka with the Department of Wildlife Conservation. And this led to a very timely launch in February 2020, before the world shut down. Sri Lanka went live with the application and have been using it ever since. So 4 years actually last month. We then implemented a second country in 2022 in Mozambique. This was actually version 2 of the eCITES application, which has also been successful, and they're still using it today. In December 2023, so very recently, we integrated the latest Species Plus database into our application. And we are aligning the CITES electronic permitting toolkit with version 3.0. And we've also worked with the Swiss Management Authority on the development of the EPICS data cross-border data exchange format, so that in the future management authorities can exchange data cross-border. Now, who is this application destined to? We identified 6 actors, of which 2 are the most important: the applicant who applies for export, import, or permit, CITES permit electronically with the application. The applicant obviously submits their application to the management authority, at which point the management authority takes over, does all the necessary controls, runs their procedures, and it might at some point require the intervention of other PGAs, partner government agencies, such as scientific authority, enforcement agencies, maybe the Foreign Management Authority, and as always, at some point, the Customs Administration. The CITES electronic permit can be identified by its QR code, and it can be exchanged electronically using the EPICS format. Now, what do we do? So we sign technical assistance projects with member states and the management authority. And by default, we will always implement phase 1 and the features in phase 1, i.e. request and issuance of e-permits. This is the trader and the management authority. Management storage of CITES trade data for annual reporting. Inspection and risk assessment according to the requirements of the management agency in the country, and payment of the fee. If you skip to phase 3 just for a while, we fully implement in the default version of our software the CITES annual report, which is an obligation for management authorities to provide this information on a yearly basis. And this is a key part of the system we provide. Phase 2, we have control, risk management, and validation of quantities. And if so requested by the member states, we can integrate the application into a full national electronic single window, if this exists, of course, in the relevant country. And looking more ahead in phase 4, we're talking about exchange of data cross-border between a management authority in country A and also in country B. So for the future, we hope to implement our software in conjunction with the CITES Secretariat in other countries. We're looking at the moment in the Pacific region. We've carried out a number of feasibility studies in various countries around the world, and hopefully they will be adopting the CITES application in the near future and in the distant future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, John, for sharing with us this tool, which is a small step for UNTAD probably, but a giant leap for the CITES community. And yeah, I don't know if it's evolution or revolution, but it will change a lot the daily work of the CITES authorities. And from there, we'll move to Jean-Manuel Garnet. Welcome, bienvenido. Thank you for being with us today. And Jean-Manuel is the Senior Manager, Climate and Biodiversity, responsible at the Orange Group, and he's Vice Chair of the ITU TSG5 group, and he will explain to us what that means. You have the floor, John Manuel.
Muchas gracias, Juan Carlos. Thank you so much. So very pleased to be with you this afternoon. So would you imagine running a hackathon without looking at your clock? I guess no. So would you imagine, let's say, act on biodiversity without measuring the impact that your actions are having? So this is where the work from the study group 5 of ITUT comes. That is to say, to help with some standards, foster action by measuring the action that you have implemented. So I will try to be quick because I know we don't have a lot of time. So just a question to the floor. Who in the room knows the ITUT study group 5 on environment, climate, biodiversity? Nearly nobody. Okay, so okay, one there. Great. So it's good that I give a quick introduction. So this is the study group works in the frame of the ITUT, which is the standardization sector of the ITU. This sector sets international standards for climate action and sustainable digitalization. And we have a new topic, we have been having a new topic, which is precisely biodiversity. And so this study group, it works cooperatively in a rather friendly manner, I could say, on developing these international standards. And we have already some robust, sound results. You can see here on the screen some examples. We have developed in a cooperative manner with the Science Based Targets initiative, with the International Energy Agency, the GSMA, the JESI, some guidance, for instance, for ICT companies on how to set science-based targets for climate. So we have a proven record of developing let's say, very recognized standards. More recently, we developed a guidance on how to assess Scope 3 for telecommunication operators. We know the importance of Scope 3 for our sector because all the goods that the sector purchases, the laptops, the smartphones, they do imply a lot of energy for the components to be produced, for the raw material to be extracted. And it's the same for biodiversity. That is, and it's even stronger. That is to say, for our sector, the vast majority of the impact comes from the upstream and from the raw material extraction in particular. So this guidance that we have on the pressure point of climate, Scope 3 guidance on telecommunication operators, it helps measure and then have a better action. And it's already the last slide, so I will be pretty quick. So we have launched 2 recommendations under development in the frame of our study group 5. The first one is to clean our own house, if I could say so. That is to say, biodiversity footprint, methodology for the assessment of the footprint of an ICT organization on biodiversity. We take into account in this work the different frameworks. So of course, the Convention on Biological Diversity, the CITES, Science-Based Target for Nature, the TNFD, the CSRD in Europe, the Global Biodiversity Score. And we look at different aspects, the analysis of pressure points on ecosystems, and also the approach, the focused approach, on-site impact versus aggregated levels. Of course, it's not the same to understand whether some gold extraction that that takes place in Latin America implies some threat for the Amazon river frog. It's not the same type of assessment then. Willing to have an aggregated view on the total impact of some products or services on biodiversity. So we are looking at these topics. And the second recommendation is on biodiversity opportunities. This is the main topic of our hackathon today. Of course, we have heard about many opportunities, proven opportunities, and it's very important to be able to assess these positive effects, to provide some proofs on and quantified assessment on the impact of the usage of artificial intelligence. We'll go to this in a few seconds. Earth observation, bioacoustics, collection and analysis of biodiversity data, such as the state of species, population sizes, habitat changes, and much more. So importance to have the 2 point of view. And so I will finish with a call for action. We encourage you to participate in this development. You are very welcome to help us define these standards. This work is taking place quite virtually a lot of the time, so it's pretty easy. There are some e-meetings that take place on one topic every month, every 2 months, depending on the progress, of course. We have sometimes also some physical meetings. The next one will be in Wrocław in Poland in June. It will be also possible, I guess, for you to join remotely. So great, you are great welcome. We would really appreciate your involvement in this work so that we make it for the ICT sector and the benefits brought by the ICT sector the best possible. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Muchas gracias, Juan Manuel. Thank you very much. And thank you for developing standards to clean the house, because I think we need to also start by checking our own processes, and we take note of the call for action. I hope that some of us will join this conversation. And the last speaker on this first block of items is Simone Hayson. She's the Director of Environmental Crime and Head of EcoSolve at the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. And Simone will discuss the EcoSolve initiative. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. And first to say thank you to the ITU, to Jen and to CITES for inviting me to speak here today. It's very exciting, in fact, to talk about the work of EcoSolve. The project began last year in September, and we're currently rolling out activities across the world. It's an EU-funded project, and it's looking at several elements of environmental crime. I'm going to be speaking specifically about our work using AI here. The first question you're probably asking is, what is cyber wildlife trafficking? When I use these terms, people often ask me, are you looking for things on the dark web? And the answer is, unfortunately, not at all. We are largely monitoring the open web, social media platforms and e-commerce platforms that everyone in this room probably uses on a daily basis, where you can find large numbers and varieties of live animals and animal parts which are highly protected for sale. The fact that it's not on the dark web says a lot about the origin of the problem, because essentially traders don't need to be on the dark web. They don't need to go to that level of effort to obscure what they're doing, because they are operating in the mix of various failures of regulation and response. And part of that tragedy is that these markets have fed directly into extinctions already and are certainly a key part of the ongoing major extinction crisis. Civil society organizations have been monitoring these markets for decades, but there hasn't been enough impact to really displace or disrupt them. We're currently entering a new phase. There's a lot more engagement by law enforcement. we have a new set of partners. And the solution that EcoSolve proposes is one that makes use of international cooperation and makes use of those new partners to have greater impact. You'll see the illustration there is one page of a particularly long report that was illustrating what could be found on the personal profiles of a bunch of traders on social media in Vietnam. The core of our global monitoring system will be the collection of data and the compilation of a database and the extraction of key trends, which will be passed on to law enforcement. We'll be using both manual monitoring and then the use of AI to do automated monitoring. Technically, all of the monitoring could be done using AI, but there are legal barriers to where it can be applied. The only technical barrier that really remains in this area and in terms of really making use of AI is around image recognition because of the training sets that are needed for the specific type of imagery. We are taking an approach of trying to roll out the system in key regions across the globe. So we have 6 hubs which are being established in the next year, our first 2 in South Africa and Brazil, and then moving into Southeast Asia later in the year. We have chosen 2 key countries in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. We have partner organizations that are proposing to run hubs, partner organizations from major environmental NGOs, and then others in Europe and North America that will be finalized towards the end of the project. These countries have been chosen because they have high levels of environmental crime, high levels of internet penetration, and large online markets. And also often because we think there is a reason to believe that the presence of a civil society organization able to support and aid a regulatory response and a national authority response will be received and gain traction. What do we want to do? The headline is disrupt criminal networks. We believe the project can play a key role in really moving the dial on this issue. And it proposes to work along 2 different channels. One is locally in the countries where hubs are based, feeding in time-sensitive information and actionable information to law enforcement and to regulators so that they can act in enforcing the law. And the other happens at a global level, so collating that information from different regions of the world in order to describe the scale and scope of this issue and to feed key data into global policy processes like the CITES process. I think cross-cutting across this and other things that the project will be doing, we're also working on what we call sort of the data cooperation and governance of other key emerging technologies in the sector, including the use of DNA technology for, as the ambassador mentioned, I suspect, identifying the origin of products that have been seized, and then also in generating these training sets for AI recognition for wildlife online. And that comes out of recognition that there are key data gaps in the response to environmental crime, and that there needs to be an ethic of filling them in which global cooperation is really central and global connectivity. And I'll end on that note. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simone. And now we are going to move to the second block. I need to say that CITES is one of the rare conventions that produce primary data by regulating the trade. So we have plenty of data to process. And the second thing is that when Matthias mentioned the iPhone, the digital part is not the iPhone, it's the hand. It's because we have free hands that we are discussing today. When we have free hands, busy minds developing all the technology since 2 million years. So plenty to develop, but the digital part started with the hands. So now we are going to discuss about making digital technologies applicable for conservation. And we have a very selected panel of experts discussing, including our host region, Geneva, in this panel. And we'll start with Esther Kitinji, from the East Africa Conservation Technology Coordinator, and this part is online. So I'm checking if we have Esther online to discuss with us about conservation technology application on the field and the Tech for Wildlife Photo Challenge. Esther?
Yes,
We
I'm
need all
here.
to use the earphones to listen to Esther, please. Use it, otherwise you won't be able to follow. Please go ahead, Esther.
Yes, thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be here today. Greetings to all who are in attendance. So just as mentioned, my name is Esther Gadinji, and I work at Wild Labs, where I help to grow and support the conservation technology community across East Africa, which serves as our first regional hub. Next slide, please. Now, Wild Labs is the global conservation technology community, and since 2015, we have worked to create pathways towards new and more immersive opportunities for our conservation technology community of tech for wildlife users and makers to grow, learn, and work together towards utilizing technologies to solve the many challenges facing our world's wildlife. Now, we continue to gain valuable insights from our community on their needs, which have informed our resources, events, and programs that are aimed at making conservation technology more effective, accessible, and impactful. Next slide, please. Now, one of the key programs that continues to allow us to learn from the perspectives and experiences of diverse members of our community about exciting projects happening on every continent and in every environment is our annual Tech for Wildlife Photo Challenge that started 8 years ago in 2016. Now, we run an annual Tech for Wildlife Photo Challenge where we invite our global community to showcase how they are using technology to address diverse wildlife conservation challenges within their communities. This has been an excellent gateway to observing conservation tech in action in the field, discovering new innovations, and understanding how conservation tech has evolved over the years. Next slide, please. Now, here's some really great examples of our photo challenges over the years that are able to showcase diverse technologies addressing varied wildlife conservation challenges across different ecosystems in the world. On your top left, you can see elephant tracking technology that's being used across East Africa that's helping to understand the behavior of elephants and reduce human-elephant conflict and promote coexistence. Next to it, you can see the use of AI that's helping to identify and count marine iguanas using aerial images. And this is happening across the Galapagos, and it's helping to improve conservation efforts within this region. Next to that, you can also see innovations such as this homemade turtle cam that's helping to also follow critically endangered species and protect them from going extinct. Below that, you can see tree canopy monitoring that's being done using camera traps and acoustics. And this is happening within a conservation corridor in Ecuador. And this is happening to inform community-based conservation and restoration efforts. And next to that, you can see the use of drones in studying penguins within the Antarctica ecosystem. And this is helping to understand how their population is changing. Next slide, please. And so at Wild Labs, we also understand the importance of crafting resources that ensure conservation technology is accessible and impactful to all communities to ensure that underrepresented groups such as women and those in developing economies can actively participate and benefit from conservation technology. This was something that we identified as a key need from our State of Conservation Tech 3-year trends report. And this has translated into our annual Women in Conservation Tech program that has been ongoing since 2022 across East Africa, where we empower and equip emerging female conservationists with foundational knowledge in conservation tech to advance their potential for impactful conservation careers and create a supportive network of women working in conservation tech across East Africa. Next slide, please. And so we are excited to be continuing our programming of our Women in Conservation Tech program and our Tech for Wildlife Photo Challenge this year. And you can stay updated by visiting our platform. Please feel free to connect with our community and learn more about our work by scanning the QR code that's right there. You can also visit our website, and you can also check out the hashtag Tech for Wildlife to see the Tech for Wildlife community across the world. Thank you so much.
Excellent, awesome. And yeah, it was impossible to have an event on AI without having people online telling to us. And it was like having you here. So thank you very much for this presentation and for highlighting the role of women in conservation technology. And now we are going to move to Swabir Abdul Rahman. And if she you can tell us where are you, because we didn't know that for Esther. And Swabir is working as a technical director, Connected Conservation Foundation, and is going to present us their work on supporting local conservationists, harnessing appropriate technologies for the protection of wildlife and natural ecosystems. Swabir, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, esteemed guests, and my fellow advocates for wildlife conservation. With great enthusiasm today that I tell you about the responsibility that CCF has taken on. Today is World Wildlife Day, and we shed light on the remarkable work done by our organization. Since its inception in 2015, CCF and its partners have been at the forefront of leveraging cutting-edge technologies to empower local conservationists and communities to safeguard our planet. Slide 2. Next slide, please. Thank you. At CCF, we believe in the transformative power of technology to address pressing conservation challenges, from combating poaching to mitigating human-wildlife conflict and preserving critical habitats, feeding into the global 30 by 30 requirement. Through strategic partnerships with industry leaders such as Cisco, Actility, NTT Data, Airbus, and Microsoft, we have harnessed the capability of networking infrastructure and long-range wide-area networks, LoRaWAN, IoT technology, to enable the seamless flow of data from sensors to algorithm to provide informed action to conservation problems. CCF work at the operational end of conservation to make sure organizations are ready to deal with landscape-wide challenges. Next slide, please. One of our flagship initiatives is the Satellite for Biodiversity program, exemplifies our commitment to innovation and collaboration. In partnership with Airbus, we harness high-resolution satellite data to monitor and manage biodiversity with unprecedented precision. This should enable our partners to track wildlife populations, monitor habitat changes, and detect emerging threats in real time, empowering conservationists with the insight they need to make informed decisions and take proactive measures to protect our planet's natural heritage. At CCF, we believe in the effective conservation goes beyond technological prowess. It requires a systematic approach to addressing various aspects, from technical reliability, community engagement, and data management, unlocking true technological sustainability. Allow me to outline some of the key steps that we have found within CCF to ensure the successful implementation of conservation. Step 1 is to ensure reliability and efficiency. We prioritize the deployment of robust technologies that can withstand challenging environmental conditions and minimize downtimes. Through proactive monitoring and maintenance, we ensure the seamless operations of systems, providing engineers with necessary tools and logistics for timely interventions. CCF helped to design, procure, donate, and implement these technologies that are critical to this environment. Step 2 is normally through the integration of a tech champion or regional leader. We empower local champions who serve as advocates for technology adaptation within their communities. By fostering continuous learning opportunities and promoting a sense of pride and ownership in their role, we ensure a strong connection between tech champions on the ground and regional tech mentors, facilitating seamless integration and system uptime. This
sure, we are moving the slides. I was staying in the same for a while, and the time is coming to an end, so
I'm nearly there. A couple more slides. This in front of you is the African Parks network. We donated some Meraki systems, and this has allowed African Park to stay connected with minimal technical expertise. So their managers within South Africa can actually reach into every network in different countries and manage and monitor. And for them, that has been absolutely groundbreaking. Next slide, please. Community engagement and empowerment. We aim to engage and educate local populations about the benefits of conservation technology, empowering them to take ownership of these solutions. This is a key part of our deployment. You can see in 22 NRT conservancies, 4 private reserves. NRT is a community conservancy set up in northern Kenya. It manages, I think, 54 community conservancies, of which 22 of those are connected and 4 private reserves. We intend to go wider on that landscape. We have 3 new locations that is coming in, which has opened up a massive conversation about connected IoT landscapes across the whole of Kenya. And the IoT in conservation is growing across 80 sites now using this globally, not just within CCF. If you go to the next, press next, yeah, you can see that down to the ground level, the connectivity is incredible. And just to close on, I urge every technology company to recognize the crucial role that they can play in advancing conservation efforts worldwide. Today, we've heard from the great efforts of Huawei. We work with Cisco and Utility and other big players like Airbus. By harnessing their unique strengths and expertise, they have the power to significantly enhance conservation capabilities. And my call to action here is, as a tangible commitment, I propose that every tech giant pledges to support the technological and data requirements of at least 30 protected areas by 2030. Just as we push the boundaries to explore the reaches of Mars, let us also push the boundaries to innovate and safeguard our planet's natural world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Swabir, and thank you for sharing these photos. We have been there looking at these rooms with technology that empowers conservationists on the ground. This is where technology needs to be as well. So thank you for that and for all the work you are doing in Africa mainly. Now we'll move to Buram Yassin, the CEO of Rainforest Connection. He or she is also online, and we'll discuss with us the role of acoustics for biodiversity, monitoring, and conservation. Please go ahead, Buram. Welcome.
Yes, hello. Thank you. Thanks for the ITU to have me, and glad to be with everyone here. My name is Borhan Yassin. I come to you from Texas in the United States. I'm the CEO of Rainforest Connection and RBMON, a nonprofit organization that focuses on using AI and acoustics primarily to conserve species, but also to fight against illegal logging and deforestation. So I'll talk a little bit about both. Next slide, please. I wanted to share with you here what's called a spectrogram. A spectrogram is basically a 2D representation of an audio clip, a sound clip. What you see in front of you here is a 30-second sound clip taken from a project that we have in Panama. And the interesting thing about this 30-second clip that you see here is the amount of species that we could discover in just 30 seconds of audio. You can see over 12 species there, birds, you can see insects, you can even see a detection of a howler monkey. And this just all happens in a 30-second clip of audio. Now, if you go back to the traditional methods of bioacoustics is not a new field of study by any means, it's decades old. But implementation of AI is certainly new in acoustics. And if you go back before AI and you look at the traditional methods of how data is being analyzed, a typical scientist, a very well-trained ear that is very familiar with these species would normally take about 10 to 15 minutes to process a single 1-minute recording to discover one species. This is just due to the number of times that they would have to listen to the recording to identify it, and just going and listening to the entire clip multiple times. Now with AI, we're able to do this with machine learning. We're able to train a model that can identify hundreds, if not thousands of species in a matter of seconds. So we can process hundreds of thousands of recordings in a matter of seconds. So what used to take somewhere between 4 to 4.5 months for a scientist to go through approximately 10,000 recordings to discover one species, we can now process that in less than a second. I mean, the other interesting part about this audio clip is that also with all the noise that these amazing species are doing, and how noisy the forest is, there's actually a chainsaw this whole time. So in this entire clip, and you can't see it or you can't even hear it. There's a chainsaw that was going on in the background just a few hundred meters away from this particular recording. And the normal human ear wouldn't be able to hear it because it just crowded by all these other vocalizations. But the reality is an AI model is able to identify, in addition to identifying species down to the individual type of species, it's able to pick out also the sound of chainsaws, the sound of mechanical noises, the sound of trucks, and so on. So we're able to protect the forest from any threats, but also be able to protect biodiversity by identifying the species. So just wanted to share this particular small clip that just gives you an insight into what the power of acoustics and the ability of acoustics to identify all sorts of species, but also all sorts of threats. The next slide, please. So one of the ways that we deploy and we're able to collect this amount of data is we deploy these devices, and this is primarily used, as I mentioned in the earlier slide, that we focus on using acoustics for threat detection, specifically the detection of chainsaws, but also for doing bioacoustics, which is the study of species using sound. What you see here is actually me deploying a device called the Guardian. We install these on top of the tree canopy. So we tree climb 40, 50 meters. We look for emerging trees in the rainforest, and we install these devices. And these are basically like a solar-powered mini computers that are recording the sound 24/7. They're able to analyze the audio on the device itself if connectivity is not available, but they're also able to send the audio to the cloud for further analysis. And with these devices, we're able to pick out the sounds of chainsaws, other illegal activities, but we're also able to pick out the sound of individual species. The next slide, please. This is what's called a passive acoustic monitoring. Here's another, this is another device that we use for deployment as well. But the beauty of passive acoustic monitoring is less invasive. It covers a large area, 360 degrees around the recorder itself. It's long, continuous. It surveys multiple species simultaneously, and it offers a permanent audio archive that we can retrieve the data back at a later time and run further analysis on it. And I think that's the beauty of it. The next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So as I talked about earlier, we deploy these hardware devices that are able to pick out sounds of chainsaws, able to pick out threats, but also able to analyze species. But we've also designed a platform, an open system that's now become the largest open source acoustic platform in the world, called Arbimon. This system is designed, this platform is designed for anyone, any scientist, any conservation organization to start using acoustics in species conservation. So they're able to record audio on any device that they want, upload the audio to the cloud, and use the tools that we've designed, use AI to identify species. And so far to date, Arbimon has identified over 4,000 species. There's somewhere around 4,300 projects that have been created, and they're running on Arbimon.
Buran?
Over 1.
Buran, sorry,
Yes.
it's not me, it's the cyborg inside me telling you that time is over. So if you can close, please.
Yeah, this is the last slide. This is the last slide. Over 1.6 billion analysis in 120 different countries, and over 151 million recordings have been uploaded to date. That's equating to about 200 years of continuous soundscape audio, and that's Arbimon. You can check it out. There's a lot of public projects that you can actually see information from the ground that's being uploaded. Just look it up on your favorite search engine. Type in Arbimon, and you'll be able to go and interact with the platform. Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, Buran. And It's fascinating. Thank you for sharing the power of acoustics with us. And now we'll move to the last speaker of this segment, which is my friend Bertrand von Ars, a CITES veteran from Geneva. Thank you for hosting us here and for coming to celebrate the World Wildlife Day with us.
Merci, Juan Carlos. Bonjour. Hello, everybody. I have very little time left, I guess. But first of all, I will take you outside to show that the canton of Geneva needs to have its beautiful biodiversity conserved. First of all, because it delivers lots of ecosystem services, and also because it helps very much to fight against climate changes. So what you maybe not know, sitting here in this room, is that Geneva is not only a city, it's also lots of agricultural land, and it's forests, and it's lots of streams, the Rhone, the lake. And all of these areas have lots of biodiversity projects. And we use technology to go on with these projects. The map of the canton shows that everywhere there is lots of biodiversity, fauna, flora, lots of rare species. And again, when you live in the city of Geneva, you rarely have a chance to go outside, but it's not very far. The canton is very small, only 250 square kilometers. But still, we need to know what's going on this canton to be able to do a quite good job in biodiversity conservation. So one of the examples I want to share with you is our natural habitat map. We start with a plane in the sky making aerial pictures, and we take a lot of different kind of data to be able to then make this map of different natural habitats. We also need, of course, to go in the field to check the effectiveness of these pictures. And this map will actually be the base for our work on biodiversity. It will tell us on the whole surface of the canton, everywhere, what is the quality of the natural habitats. It can be very simple when you need to have a gross idea for land use, but you can have it very, very sharp too when you do need to save endangered species or made protected areas. So you have different scales, and again, thanks to geometric tools, we are able to have this natural habitat map. Next step is actually to find out what is the green infrastructure, because you know that biodiversity needs reservoirs, hotspots for reproductions, for living, and so on. But it also needs to connect with other populations of animals, and also plants need to move around. So we have this green infrastructure with 4 pillars. One is the composition of the biodiversity with species and habitats. Another is the connectivity. We need to know where the species will be able to go to move around and to find other populations. We also need to know the structure of the landscape, because it is sometimes difficult for animals to move in big open fields, and sometimes it's also difficult for butterflies, for example, to go over forests and so on to, again, reach each other's. And then eventually we also add a few ecosystem services to make sure that the whole system is functioning and it's working. And so again, with another geometric tool called Marxan, we are making this green infrastructure of Geneva, which shows again in blue dark the most interesting parts in the canton, and where we find the 17% IC target for making protected areas. But also we need these corridors, these ecological corridors, to link these hotspots together, and we have at least 13%, again a CBD target, to link this infrastructure. Also, with this mapping, we can find out the disruptions and then see where we have to fix this infrastructure, for example, with eco-bridges. We can do the same kind of mapping on the larger scale that says around Geneva too. You see when you go outside here that all the mountains that are around the canton of Geneva are actually in France, and we need to work together with France, and we need to keep this connection between the mountains and the lake. Another tool is the dark infrastructure. You know that 60% of the biodiversity needs the darkness to live. And so we have also a mapping with all the light sources and to find out about the light pollution. And then we can figure out in red of the map where we have to fix this infrastructure to, again, make sure that the connections and the hotspots in the night are also working. And with some dynamic mapping, like you can see, you can move the cursor and you have on one side the night, and then you can move how it looks when it's daylight. And so you can figure out when mixing the two different maps, two different infrastructures, you can find out where are the places where we have to fix this infrastructure. And together with people, with colleagues who are from the mobility or from buildings or whatever, we can find out where we have to keep the places free for biodiversity. We also use, as many others, camera traps to find out where the population lives, how big they are, and even if there is reproductions or not. And sometimes you can have some surprises in these on these pictures. Here you have a smuggler with some cannabis. And you also try to have the proof of presence. We heard about the bioacoustics, and obviously it's very useful tool that we don't use yet very much, unless for bats. But we have these traps also to figure out about these animals, and one of them that we look very closely at is the European wolf. And you may probably have heard about the management of this species in Switzerland in the papers. And this is a funny picture, so you probably wonder what it is. And again, it's to make sure where the deers wander between the mountains, the Jura mountain and the lake and the forest near the lake. And the little spots are the radio tracking that is on the animals. We catch the animals and then we put them these radio collars on. And so we make sure that we know where they go, where they have their connections or not. And so again, we can make these big maps of connectivity in the canton and between the mountains and the lake. And then again, we can prioritize the actions and the measure that we have to take to rebuild these connections. Another way, maybe the last example here is to last example. Yes, thank you. Is to control non-native invasive species. Here we have the Asian hornet, and with some radio tracking again, we can find the nests and then have the fireman go and pick the nests and kill the animals. So what I want to show is that here too we need this technology. It's very useful, but technology is not all. The human intuition and the observation, the field work is also very important. And in this case, everybody, when we were kids, we knew these insects on the windshield of the cars, and now we don't have any insects anymore. So that's another way to find out that we have a problem with this disappearance of insects, and maybe it's a very large problem for humanity. Thank you.
Excellent, and I think that we want to discover more about Geneva, so I invite you for next year. We would like to have Geneva as the World Wildlife Capital, and we'll organize a wildlife night to see the pollution as well, not only Wildlife Day. Thank you for that, and technology is not the panacea. The humans should do their part as well. I think we are going to move now to the launch of CITES Lex, which will be the shortest launch of a very big project. And I invite my FAO colleague, Juliana Kamura, and my colleague, Thomas Deloy, that have been working together on this project to just give us a flavor of what is this CITES Lex about. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. First of all, happy World Wildlife Day to everybody. Thank you to the organizers of this event for the opportunity to launch CITES Lex, the new information system that provides national catalogs and comprehensive search capabilities of legislation policies relevant to the implementation of CITES. The Development Law Service of the Legal Office of FAO has been collaborating closely with the CITES Secretariat to support states, members of FAO that are parties to CITES, to strengthen their implementation of CITES through national legal frameworks. And CITES Lex is a product of this collaboration. It all started in mid-2022 when FAO participated in an international workshop on legal acquisition findings organized by the Secretariat, and the need to develop an electronic system that facilitates the making of LEFs was raised. Then at COP19 in Panama, FAO presented this idea of 2 phases for developing CITES Lex. And the conclusion of the first phase, which is focused on providing the country profiles, is what we are launching today. We put together a team in Lex to work on identifying keywords, tagging the legislation and policies relevant for CITES, and examining country reports submitted to the Secretariat, where also provides information about national legislation relevant to CITES. And we're very happy to be here today launching the database. So this is how CITES Lex look like. You can have access to it by the URL link on top of this screen. It provides information on the homepage about CITES with links to the CITES webpage, where you can find more information about the national legislation project, some information about FAO partnership with the CITES Secretariat, the methodology of how we developed the country profiles. We also provide some examples of related websites that are important, such as the CITES Illegal Trade Database, FAOLEX, ECOLEX. Also related resources, such as the Agreement on Port States Measures and the Catch Documentation Scheme technical guidelines. And information to contact us in case you find information that is relevant that is not there, and to clarify questions about CITES Lex. An important feature of CITES Lex is the advanced search, where users can search for legislation policy by region, country, or period, keywords, and types of text. And the main feature of the CITES Lex is now the country profiles, where you find information about constitutional provisions that are relevant to CITES, and that's automatically retrieved from FAOLEX database. So we have already selected those constitutional provisions that are relevant to CITES, such as those related to natural resources, environment and climate, biodiversity. There's also a list of CITES-specific legislation, CITES-related legislation, which are those sectoral ones related to fisheries, forestry, and wildlife, for instance. Additional legislation related to biodiversity, customs, indigenous peoples, and local communities, which are also important for the CITES regime. And information about other international commitments to which the country is a party to, such as the Convention on Biological Diversity, the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, and CITES-related policies. So the next steps, now we are preparing a video to promote and facilitate the use of CITES Lex, and also we'll be notifying parties to request review of country profiles, and we will be incorporating their technical inputs to enhance the database. And we are, of course, also in the process of fundraising, because we need funds to continue maintaining the database and also further developing CITES Lex into a more comprehensive system for assisting states in making LAFs. So with this, I thank you very much for your attention, and I leave you our contact details in case you need more information, and invite you all to visit CITES Lex. Thank you.
Congratulations, and the 2 big standards of CITES are verifying legality and verifying sustainability. So this is an important tool, and we expect that the US and Switzerland may have an interest in supporting this expansion of this tool in the future. With that, I stop looking at my phone, and I will look at that clock that is 5 minutes behind for the closing remarks by the Ambassador Crocker and the Chair of the Animals Committee, Mr. Matthias Locher. So Ambassador Crocker, you have the floor.
Thank you, and I will be very brief, just to say, again, a big thank you to the Geneva Environment Network and the CITES Secretariat for bringing us together to celebrate World Wildlife Day here in Geneva. Thank you again to Doreen Bogdan-Martin for hosting us at the ITU. This was an impressive event, hackathon, and I am inspired by the potential of powerful new technologies to help accelerate our conservation work. So please do keep up the good work and know that the United States is committed to these efforts. Thank you very much.
Well, I can only echo what Ambassador Crocker just said. Thank you very much to Jen, ITU, and CITES Secretariat for organizing this event. It's been, I think I didn't promise too much when I said we will hear many examples of how innovative digital innovation can help us conserve biodiversity. And I think we also have heard calls where we can support each other. And so thank you everyone for the presentation and for the good examples we have heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we have a video that we'll send to all those that register by the link out illustrating this thematic as well. And now I invite you to join us for a reception upstairs. So please follow my colleagues that will show the direction. Thank you for coming. Thank you to all. Happy World Wildlife Day.